Because if you look at the U.S. Census for that year, there were 58 nuns in the order. The 1940 census was also the first one in which the educational level was given for everyone listed. And every one of those nuns, without exception, I was mildly surprised, everyone had some college education. Most of them had 2 years, but many had 3 and 4 years of college. You mentioned the names of Sister Marie de Lourdes, Sister Louise, Sister Michael, Sister Martha, and my mind is flooded with warm thoughts of extraordinarily devout and dedicated teachers. Their influence will be with me forever. May God rest their souls in paradise. And now I'd like to close my remarks by just trying to recall some of the memories I had as a student, both in the elementary and high school. And I call these bagatelles or trifles because they're significant only because they're things that I remember. But I started school here in 1939. And my first teacher was Sister Marie de Lourdes. Everything that is good and sweet and noble was bound up in her personality. And every child who starts school should have a sister like Sister Marie de Lourdes. When I started school here, tuition was $1 a month. And we used to take our report cards home at the end of the month, have one parent sign them and bring them back. The next day, Father Bastide visited each class and collected all the report cards. This gave him the opportunity, of course, to see how bad or how well every student was doing, and to dish out praise or rebuke in front of everybody. Thank you. As only Father Bastide knew how. But I remember also in that first grade that Father Bastide got together a number of buses and took their entire school to Audubon Park. The picture of that group is in the silver anniversary issue. One of the other things I remember was, well, of course, I've got to talk about the sheep and you all know that Father Bastide had a flock of sheep which used to keep the grass down in the cemetery. At that time, Louisiana was a free-range state, so cattle, horses, sheep could roam freely on the levee and in anybody's yard. You had to fence them out. They caused problems for the students because they left their droppings all over the schoolyard. And the worst days of all was when we had inclement weather, when we had storms at night, and they would seek the shelter of the covered walkways in front of the school. And it was the good nuns that had to clean up all of this mess. The Green Onion was a WPA privy. There was one for the boys and one for the girls, back to back. And they were located about where the model of the old red church sits right now. They were painted olive drab, and I have heard that they were named after a dance hall in Hunville by the same name. Now, we had indoor plumbing in both the old school and here in the auditorium. But early on, Father Bastide closed them because he said the students made too much of a mess. Remember, we didn't have a school janitor until Father Strasser came here. The Green Onions had no doors because Father Bastide said he wanted to prevent what he called any hanky-panky. And I still recall the girls holding up their coats to give their friends who were using the facilities some privacy. To my knowledge, the Green Onions were never cleaned. And there was no tissue paper ever furnished. When nature called, you tore a couple of sheets out of your big cheap tablet and you took them took him. The other thing I remember is the annual visits by the Mother Superior. For us, it was Mother Philomena. And when Mother Philomena came to town, we all had to memorize our favorite poem, which was the Chamber of Nautilus. We didn't know what we were saying, but every class had to recite in unison. We didn't know what we were saying, but Mother seemed to be happy. I revisited that poem in my more mature years and discovered its really beautiful religious symmetry. The nautilus is a mollusk related to the snail. And every year it outgrows its shell. So it has to close off the old chamber and build a new one. And it continues to do this in a spiral until it dies. Well, Mr. Emerson saw in this a metaphor for man's spiritual journey through life. You know, the idea of putting off the old man and putting on the new. Emerson put it so much better. He said, "Build thee more stately mansions, O my soul." But that's how I remember Mother Philomena. One of the things we look forward to every year was the Coca-Cola truck. Every year, the local distributor gave everybody a manila envelope, in which was a ruler, an ink blotter, I don't know why, and a red Coca-Cola pencil. There might have been other items that I have forgotten, but you have no idea how we look forward to that little gift. But you got to remember, this was still the Great Depression, and when you don't have much, it didn't take much to make you happy. We always had a cafeteria here, but most people like myself who never developed a palate for mutton stew, we went off the school grounds and bought our lunch from Mrs. Sidney Becknell or from Didier Douay's store. Now, Mrs. Becknell, bless her soul, she sold a foot-long sandwich of hot ground meat sauce, toasted in her oven, and she sold all of this on our back porch. Now, Miss Becknell only made one pot of sauce, and she only bought so many loaves of pot bread. So when they were gone, they were gone. So everybody, it was bedlam in there every day, because everybody was screaming to be recognized and get the next sandwich. Miss Becknell could have used a number system. One of the things that I remember when Father Bastille was here was the annual bag of candy. On the last day of scheduled classes before Christmas break, the entire school would gather here in the auditorium, and we would all troop across the stage, which was back here, wish Father Bastille a Merry Christmas, and receive our bag of candy. Again, we were very grateful. It didn't take much to make us happy. We didn't have any physical education classes scheduled until we got to the high school. But that doesn't mean we didn't get a lot of exercise. At recess, the boys played Pop the Whip, and I bet nobody remembers this, Picky Pot 2. But we played that game. At the noon break, Father Bastille used to umpire a baseball game here in front of the auditorium. Baseball was his favorite sport. But during the cold months, he used to also referee football. And when I say football, I'm not talking about touch football or flag football. This was smash mouth tackle football without the benefit of helmet or pads. And I stand here even today astonished that nobody was seriously hurt or killed. A lot of the guys went on to star on the football team at Destrehan High School. When the weather was too cold or too wet outside, Father Bastille rolled out a carpet here on the floor, on the concrete floor in the auditorium, and brought out 2 sets of boxing gloves. So anybody that had a dispute could settle it right here. We didn't play competitive sports, that is, against other schools, until our senior year when they hired a coach. And we played in a league called the Metropolitan League, which had been founded the year before in New Orleans. And in that first season, we won 2 games, lost 6, and tied 1. But a lot of our losses were only by 6 points, so I mean, it wasn't that bad for our first year. One of the games that I remember vividly was against Dutchtown. It was their annual fair day, and we were playing at the fair. Well, they ran in a bunch of ringers on us, people that had already graduated. In fact, that school had to forfeit its entire schedule the year before for playing ineligible players. Well, when they walked out to the field, I mean, what we saw was 11 gorillas. We won the toss and elected to receive. I realized our mistake when the ball came down the field, because everybody on our team ran away from the ball. And if memory serves me right, it was Bobby Robichaud, our co-captain, quarterback, and star, who fell on the ball. And he found himself under a pile of 11 of these gorillas.